Okay, we are almost ready to begin with Texas coach Vic Schaefer. We'll give you all a second to get seated. Okay, at this time, Vic will give an opening statement, and then we will take questions. Please raise your hand and remember to state your name and affiliation. Coach?
Good morning. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge someone who's given so much to the game, and it's my understanding they stepped down today, Doug Bruno. He's a dear friend and colleague, and he's seen everything probably that's happened in this sport and then some. And we obviously played them earlier in the year, and I'd reached out to him several times with no response. And then finally on game day, I was able to talk to him on the phone, and his voice sounded so good. It sounded like Doug. But he told me he wasn't going to be able to coach in the game that night. And but anyway, I just felt compelled to mention him, thank him. Again, when you've been in this game as long as I have, it's people like him that you just really come to appreciate because you've seen so much growth in the sport. And he's had a big part in that, and I want to wish him the very best. So just going into this game, again, really honored to be a part of the NCAA tournament. But even added to that is the opportunity to be in a game with another program like the University of Texas in Tennessee that's so rich in tradition. The history of the game happened so much in Knoxville and in Austin alike, and I'm just honored to, again, have the opportunity to not only be in the NCAA tournament, but to be involved in a game with them. Coach Caldwell's done an incredible job with that team this year. They're really good. They could have easily have won 12 or 13 in our league. We're in just about every game all year long. They've had two of their better wins obviously are against Connecticut and Ohio State last week. You don't do that by accident. And she obviously has brought a lot of attention to the game, not only with their success, but how they've done it. And they've done it really, really well. And it's a credit to her and her staff and her players because they play extremely hard. They're tough. And so we're going to have to play really well tomorrow. Proud of my team. It's not easy to be 33-3 coming out of the Southeastern Conference, to have played, I guess, the second best schedule in the country behind South Carolina as far as the net goes. So I'm awfully proud of my group. But we're going to have to obviously be ready to go tomorrow and take care of the ball. It'll be a guard-oriented game on one end, and then when you get on the other, you've got to have all five involved and playing really well. You got to take care of the ball. You got to realize they basically have five players that average double figures. And so we'll have to be real attentive to that and really focused. We obviously had a knockdown drag out at our place earlier in the year. We were kind of running on fumes that week. We had already played Maryland on that Monday. On Martin Luther King Day, we had to come home and play them on Thursday. We were in the midst of let's see if I can remember it, Sunday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday stretch. And really had a tough game with them. Could have gone either way. So I'm sure they're confident going into the game, rightfully so. I think our kids are ready to go. And again, for somebody that's been around and seen a lot in the game, Coach Caldwell's done an incredible job getting that thing turned around really quick, and you have to give her and her kids a lot of credit for that.
Okay, we'll start in the front, right?
Hey, Coach, Doug Feinberg, the AP.
Hey, Doug.
Thanks for your words on Bruno. It saves me a question asking about it.
Yeah.
Does it help you guys, having played them already, since their style is different and the subbing and the frantic pace of the pressing, that you've seen it once, so your kids are not accustomed to it, but they've seen it, so you watching films like, hey, this is what we did the first time?
For sure. It was, though, it just seems so long ago. It's over, a month and a half ago, I think. So it's been a while. Looks like it was like on January 23rd or something like that, 21st. So that's a long time ago, 2 months ago. But I do think, when you get in the NCAA tournament, you think, okay, man, thank goodness you get out of the SEC and you don't have to go against, those people, because you have so much respect and admiration for everybody in our league. And then, these things happen. I mean, they go into Ohio State and they thumped them. I mean, they played really good. Those kids play so hard. And so this is what happens. And so, I'm sure they'll have a great crowd. They're a little bit closer to Knoxville here than we are to Austin. So, but I do think there's some, there's familiarity on their part, and there certainly is a little bit on our part too.
Front left.
Danny Davis, Austin American States, and Vic, the Tennessee game would have been the last time Aaliyah played. So I'm kind of wondering, in the 6 weeks since, how has she, and Layla too as well, kind of stepped up and helped in other aspects of this team?
Yeah, they still are involved every day. They're around. They're obviously doing their rehab and involved in themselves, but they're off the floor in the locker room. They're obviously involved with our players and still are a big part of what we do off the floor. And so, and I know on the bench they're a lot of energy over there, which is important for our kids, to have your friends and your teammates pulling for you. And Sarah kind of runs that crew over there, but those two have really done a good job, and they're great teammates. They love their teammates, and their energy is infectious over there.
Right here.
Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. Vic, I look up those names. It says Rori, Harmon, Shea Holly, Taylor Jones. That's a lot of institutional knowledge in a tournament. How great is it to be old at this time of the year, when some of these teams are doing this for the first time?
Yeah, those kids, you're right. They've got a lot of mileage, a lot of wins, and again, it's one of the things that, for me, I just, I want it so bad for those kids. You want it so bad for them if this time of year could be, and so it's nice to have a veteran group like that, on the floor. They've been there. I think they're unfazed. They're unflappable. And so it's, again, tomorrow's going to be really important that we take care of the ball. I think the first time we had 12 turnovers, and I think only 2 of them were directly result of the press. So we're going to have to take care of them and take care of the ball. And 2 of those names you just mentioned are veteran guards.
Kirk Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. Vic, you've bragged incessantly about Rori since she got here, and I think you started recruiting her when you were at Mississippi State, right?
Yeah.
I was curious, your first impressions of her, and why did you want to get her on board so quickly?
Yeah, I'll have to say it, and my man here is from Mississippi State, but I bet I was on the school plane a bunch, flying to Houston to see her play when I was coaching there and recruiting her. And, she's somebody, obviously, that there were 3 really good guards that came out that year, and all of them, Raven at South Carolina and Rori. And I just, we were in dire need of a great, we knew who we were graduating and all that. And obviously when I got to Austin, Rori being 2.5 hours from campus, she was my, our top priority. We had to try to hold on to Aaliyah Moore, who had already committed, and then we really had to go get Rori. When you're building a program, it starts with your point guard. And, that was the one I felt like, being 2.5 hours from home, we had a great opportunity to get and needed to get. And as you know, when you're at the University of Texas, you try to close the borders and close the walls and keep the good ones in the state. And in my mind, she was one of the best in the country, if not the best. And so, I knew Raven was closer to South Carolina, and I knew they were recruiting her. I'd been to her games as well, but Rori was the one, in my mind, once we got to Austin, we had to really focus on. And boy, she's not disappointed a lick. I mean, you're talking about a kid that scored almost 1,300 points, over 700 assists, the only player in the history of our university, in our storied history, to do that. And could potentially have another year to really separate herself, to be at a point where no one will ever catch her again. So, again, if she was sitting here, she'd tell you, give her teammates credit, because they've been able to finish a lot of those passes that she's made. But she's just an incredible young lady, and I'm a better coach, better father, better husband, because I've been around her every day, and I'm really thankful that I've been able to. There's some comfort, y'all, when you're a head coach, knowing that that's the engine, that's who's running your group, your team. And then we've obviously been able to add Madison Booker, who's been able to do the same thing. Once we lost Rori a year ago, Book stepped up and was just incredible. And so now that's kind of where you start, when you think about it, when you're going into a game. That's two good ones that you start with. And then you got a Shay Holly, who's been here 5 years. So there's a lot of comfort in that.
Here on the aisle to the left.
Yeah, Michael Vopel, ESPN.com. Coach Schaefer, you mentioned a little earlier you've been in the game a long time, so you know this history between these two programs goes way, way back, even when they obviously weren't in the same conference, they played each other. I wonder if you talk about the fact that these were two institutions that bought into women's basketball a lot earlier. I know it doesn't necessarily have to do with the game itself, but the bigger picture of it and what that means that, meeting in an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you have to, everything you just said, for me, I've coached against Pat Summitt, and you have Holly Warlick, Kelly Jolly Harper. I mean, Tennessee women's basketball, the University of Texas women's basketball, those two institutions, along with just a handful of others, their administrations understood the value that women's basketball had and could bring to an institution. And they invested in it. And they invested in it with, obviously, two unbelievable coaches. And again, I stand here today so humbled and honored to have that opportunity to now be in an NCAA tournament, having to play against them. Obviously, I had to play against Tennessee when I was at Mississippi State. They had never beaten Tennessee when I took that job at State. And then go to Texas, where those two had a history of playing each other in non-conference every year since the beginning of time. And so for me, and I know, Coach Caldwell embraces where she is, and she understands the history as well. And so I'm sure she feels like I do. It's just an honor to represent two entities, two huge women's basketball corporations, if you will, that have been around for so long, and now we're entrusted. I mean, it can be a heavy burden if you let it, to be quite honest with you. I cherish my visits and my time with Coach Conrad so much. I have love and respect and admiration for her, and it's always good just to be around her and be with her. But I also have a Coach Harston, who's actually been on both staffs, who's one of our sport admins, and then Chris Plonsky, who's seen it all. But you're talking about three women on just my campus that have invested so much in women's basketball their entire life. I mean, for me, that's what I've been entrusted with, and I don't take it lightly. And I know Coach Caldwell doesn't take her opportunity lightly either at a place like the University of Tennessee, where you're right. They have been there from day one, just like Texas, and have seen the value of what happens when you invest in a program, invest in coaches, invest in facilities, locker rooms, all those things. And so, again, it's a real honor for me, I can tell you.
Abby Halpin, USA Today. Coach, when you were talking about Rori, you mentioned her injury that she had that knocked her out for quite a bit. How did you see her grow as a person, rehabbing that injury and working her way back to the court?
I can tell you, I've seen one other kid in my career work as hard as she did. You know, this year's schedule, I put it off a week. We didn't open the first week. We opened the second week because I was trying to give Rori an extra week to get ready. She scrimmaged USC in October in a closed-door scrimmage. She was ready to go she probably could have gone at 5 months, but we don't play anybody in July, and there's no point in rushing her. But the kid's commitment, her toughness, with that injury, it's not the physical piece as much as the mental piece, getting over that. And we were laughing the other day talking about that first outside competition experience when we went and played in October up in Dallas. We met USC up there, and we talked about how she was a step slow, which was still a step faster than just about everybody else on the floor. There was a couple of guards that USC had that gave her a little problem, but we laughed about that because, you look at her play now and you're amazed. Like, you look at her and her movement, her explosiveness. I said this even before she got hurt, the torque and just the power that she plays with, the change of direction. I'm amazed. I was amazed out there today. I'm amazed every day. She does something every day that's just explosive, off the chart, but it's what's allowed her to be so good on both ends of the floor. And I'm not sure. And so the answer to your question is, so while she's hurt, I got to move Booker into the point guard spot, and she's helping bring Madison along and telling her, hey, Coach is calling that play for this reason. He ain't just calling it for grins. You got to understand, he's calling it because he wants this person to get the ball, or he wants this for this. So she's coaching over there and helping her along with everybody else. And then if she was in here today, and I heard her say this, I think yesterday or the day before, she'd look at me some days and go, I see what you were meaning by that, Coach. You were right the last, 2 or 3 years, And then last year, we were standing on the side in January, and now she's, the best press attack, y'all, is a great point guard. It isn't how many press plays you can run. It's just having a good point guard. We were standing there one day. I was putting in 3 press attacks. We were fixing to go play West Virginia, who press 40 minutes. So Booker's my point guard, and we're having to run through all she looked at me and she said, Coach, I don't ever remember all these press attacks. And I said, no kidding, we ain't never done these before. But I got to put them in for this team because you're over here with me, standing here talking to me about this. So, it's just, she brought so much to the table on the floor, then she's off of it, but yet she's over there coaching, mentoring our players. And it's why I tell her all the time, whenever she's done playing, I'll have a spot for her on my staff, because she and I are on the same page so many times. She calls plays that I'm thinking about, before I can get them out of my mouth. She's calling them out and looking at mismatches and things like that. So it's fun to coach a team like this, and it's really fun to coach a team that's got a point guard like her.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Wow. All right.
17 minutes.
Okay. Hey, appreciate everybody. Thank you for your time and your coverage of our great game. Praise the Lord, Nook of Horns. You must have a lunch date or something.
No, you got ESPN next.